The wind was strong that night, and the rain fell like buckets of water from the sky. The streets were almost empty because no one wanted to be outside in such a storm. But inside a small old diner at the corner of Maple Street, a young waitress named Lena was still working. She had tied her dark hair in a simple ponytail, and her shoes were wet from running in and out to clean the front area. Even though she was tired, she kept a small smile on her face. She always did. She believed that being kind made the world a little brighter, even on stormy days like this. Lena was only 23, but she carried responsibilities much bigger than her age. Every morning she woke up early to take care of her sick mother. Every night she worked long hours at the diner to earn enough money for rent and medicine. Many customers never knew how hard her life was. She never talked about her struggles. She only said, "I'm okay," even on days when she felt like crying. That night, the diner felt unusually quiet. The storm outside made the windows shake, and the lights flickered now and then. The few people who came inside quickly ate their food and rushed out again, wanting to reach home before the rain got worse. Lena wiped the counters, cleaned the tables, and waited for closing time. Her boss, Mr. Grant, sat in his office counting bills. He was a strict man who did not like giving away anything for free. Lena knew she had to be careful around him. Just as she placed the last clean fork into the holder, the door slowly opened. A cold blast of wind rushed in, making her shiver. She looked up and saw an elderly man standing at the entrance. His clothes were old and soaked. His gray hair clung to his forehead, and his hands trembled as he tried to close the door behind him. Rainwater dripped from his sleeves onto the floor, forming a small puddle around his shoes. For a moment, no one else noticed him. The other customers kept eating without looking up, but Lena did. She could see how weak he looked, how tired his steps were. She walked toward him and gently asked, "Sir, are you okay?" The elderly man nodded slowly but did not speak. He looked embarrassed, as if he felt he did not belong in a warm place like the diner. Lena guided him to a booth near the heater. "Please sit here," she said with kindness. The man lowered himself carefully into the seat, trying not to make a mess. He tucked his cold hands under his arms, trying to warm himself. "Would you like something hot to drink?" Lena asked softly. The man looked up, and for the first time she saw his eyes clearly. They held sadness, exhaustion, and something deeper, loneliness. He cleared his throat and whispered, I have no money tonight. I'm sorry." Lena felt her heart twist. She had seen poor people before, but something about this man touched her deeply. Maybe it was the way he said sorry, as if he expected to be pushed back outside into the rain. She gave him a gentle smile and said, "Don't worry. Let me bring you something warm." She knew her boss would not like it, but she could not leave this man hungry and freezing. Some rules, she believed, did not matter when a human needed help. She hurried to the kitchen and poured a cup of hot tea. She added extra honey to warm him faster. She also filled a bowl with thick vegetable soup, the kind that made people feel comforted on cold nights. She placed the tray in front of him, and the man stared at the food with disbelief. "For me?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Yes," Lena said softly. "Please eat. You're safe here." The man held the warm cup like it was the most precious thing he had ever touched. As he sipped the tea, his body slowly relaxed. His shoulders dropped and a small sigh escaped him. Lena watched from a distance while pretending to clean tables. She felt glad that she helped him, even a little. Acts of kindness always came back to the heart, she believed. But not everyone thought the same. Mr. Grant stepped out of his office, and Lena felt her stomach tighten. He scanned the room and frowned when he saw the old man eating a bowl of soup. "Who ordered that?" he asked loudly. The whole diner grew quiet. Lena did not lie. She walked to her boss and said, "I gave it to him. He was cold and hungry. He needed help." Mr. Grant sighed angrily but did not say more because customers were watching. He turned around and went back to his office, but Lena knew she might hear from him later. Still, she did not regret her choice. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside the diner, one small corner felt warm because of her kindness. The elderly man lifted his eyes toward Lena again, and this time gratitude filled them. He whispered, "Thank you. You don't know how much this means." Lena smiled softly. She had no idea that this simple act on this stormy evening would change her entire life the very next day. The storm outside did not slow down. Rain kept hitting the windows like small stones, and the wind made the street signs shake. Inside the diner, however, a quiet warmth slowly filled the corner where the elderly man sat. Lena watched him from behind the counter. She saw how carefully he drank the tea, as if he did not want to waste even a single drop. She saw how he held the bowl of soup close, letting the steam warm his cold face. Something about him made her feel protective, like he reminded her of someone she once knew. The elderly man finished half the soup and paused. His hands were still shaking a little, but his eyes looked softer now. He lifted the spoon slowly, almost tenderly, as if the warm soup carried hope with it. Lena felt a small relief in her heart. She had done something right tonight. When she walked to check on him, she asked gently, "Do you feel a little better now?" The man looked up with a shy smile. "Yes, dear, much better. Thank you." His voice was soft, but it carried a deep sincerity that touched her. He hesitated before he spoke again. "What is your name, Lena?" she replied. He repeated the name quietly, as if memorizing it. Lena, such a kind name. She blushed slightly. People rarely complimented her. Most only saw her as a waitress who brought food and cleaned tables. But this man looked at her like she was something more, someone who mattered. The man tried to stand up, but his legs wobbled. Lena quickly helped him sit back down. "Please don't get up yet. The storm is too strong. You can stay until it gets calm," she said. He stared at his hands in silence for a moment. Then he spoke in a trembling voice. "I did not come here to trouble anyone. I just needed somewhere warm for a few minutes. I didn't expect." His eyes glistened with emotion. "I didn't expect someone to care." Her heart softened. "Everyone deserves care," she said simply. She believed those words deeply. While she spoke with him, 2 customers nearby watched without saying anything. They whispered quietly to each other, judging the elderly man for his appearance. Lena heard them but ignored it. She refused to treat anyone based on how they looked. The man slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out a few small coins, old, worn, and barely enough for a cup of tea. He pushed them across the table toward her. "This is all I have," he said softly. "Please take it." Lena shook her head immediately and pushed the coins back into his hand. "No, sir. Keep it. You may need it later." His lips trembled and he lowered his eyes. "You're very kind, kinder than most people I meet." Lena smiled politely, but inside her heart, she felt a quiet ache. She knew what it felt like to be ignored, judged, or forgotten. She had worked hard all her life and still struggled, but she never let pain take away her kindness. As the elderly man finished the soup, he talked a little more. His words came out slowly, as if each sentence carried a memory from a long time ago. "I used to walk these streets every day," he said. "Life was different then. I had a family, a home, everything felt full." He paused, looking out at the storm. "But time changes everything. One day you have everything. The next day, you're just a lonely old man trying to stay warm." Lena felt a tightness in her chest. She sat down across from him for a moment, even though she knew she might get in trouble. "I'm sorry you went through that," she said softly, "but you're not alone right now." Her words made the man blink rapidly, as if he was holding back tears. Before their conversation could continue, the door to the office opened again. Mr. Grant stepped out and looked around the diner. His eyes landed on the man, then on Lena sitting with him. His eyebrows rose with irritation, but Lena pretended not to notice. She quickly stood up and returned to the counter. Mr. Grant walked toward her. "We don't run a charity here," he whispered sharply. "You know the rules." "I'm sorry," she said quietly. He needed help. Her boss shook his head. "Next time, think before giving away food. It comes out of your paycheck." Lena felt her stomach drop, but she did not argue. She simply nodded. She could not take back her decision, and she did not want to. Back at the booth, the elderly man noticed something was wrong. "I don't want to cause you trouble," he said softly. "You didn't," Lena replied with a gentle smile. "You just focus on warming up." For the first time, he smiled back, a full, warm smile that softened his entire face. Minutes later, the storm softened a little. The man stood up carefully, leaning on the table for support. Lena rushed to help him wear his wet coat again. He looked at her deeply and said, "I won't forget this." "Not tonight. Not ever." She nodded kindly. "Take care, sir. Please stay safe." The man slowly walked out of the diner and disappeared into the light rain. Lena watched him go, feeling a strange tug in her heart. She had a feeling this was not the last time she would see him, but she never imagined how big the next day's surprise would be. The rain slowed to a gentle drizzle by the time the elderly man stepped outside, but the cold wind still followed him. Lena stood by the window watching him walk slowly into the night. Something about the way he looked back once, just for a second, stayed in her mind. His eyes carried a story, one she didn't fully understand yet. But she knew one thing: he needed kindness, and she was glad she offered it. Inside the diner, things returned to normal, at least on the surface. The customers paid their bills and left one by one. The sound of the storm faded, replaced by the soft clatter of plates and the hum of the old heater. But Lena's heart didn't feel normal. It felt heavy but also strangely warm, as if doing one good thing had pushed away some of her own sadness. She wiped down the table slowly, thinking about the elderly man's trembling hands. She wondered if he made it somewhere safe. She wondered if he had anyone waiting for him. She even wondered if he had eaten anything before that soup. The world had countless people, yet somehow their paths had crossed tonight. She believed things happened for a reason. At the booth where he sat, she found the spoon sitting perfectly straight, the napkin folded neatly, and the bowl empty. But next to the bowl was something unexpected, a small, carefully folded piece of paper. Lena picked it up, confused. The paper was damp on the edges from the steam of the soup, but the writing inside was still clear. It said only one line: "Kindness always returns home." Her breath caught softly. The handwriting was shaky but beautiful, like someone who had lived many years and carried many memories. She held the note for a moment, feeling something stir in her heart. She slipped it into her apron pocket before anyone else could see. When she returned to the counter, her boss walked out again with a stern expression. "Lena, I need to talk to you." Her heartbeat quickened. She followed him toward the back of the diner. She knew this moment would come. Mr. Grant crossed his arms. "You know giving free food goes against the rules. That soup and tea will be taken from your paycheck this week." Lena nodded, trying to stay calm. "I understand. You can't do that for everyone," he continued. "If you help one person today, 10 more will come tomorrow." She looked down at her shoes. Maybe, but tonight he needed help, and I couldn't just ignore that. And Mr. Grant sighed, not convinced but too tired to argue more. He waved his hand. "Get back to work." She returned to the front with mixed feelings. Losing money hurt, but the thought of the elderly man shivering outside in the storm hurt even more. If she had to choose again, she would still do the same. As the night grew darker, the diner finally closed. Lena locked the front door and stepped outside. The air still smelled of rain, but the wind had calmed. She pulled her thin jacket tighter around her body and began the long walk home. Her shoes splashed through small puddles as she walked past dim streetlights. The city felt quiet, almost thoughtful. On her way home, she passed the small alley where she sometimes saw homeless people resting. She looked around just in case the elderly man had ended up there. But the alley was empty. Her heart felt relieved, though she still hoped he found somewhere safe. When she reached home, her mother was sleeping, and Lena quietly checked her temperature, adjusted her blanket, and kissed her forehead. Her mother always worried about her working late shifts, but Lena hid most of her struggles. She didn't want her mother to feel guilty. After drinking a small cup of tea, Lena sat on her bed and opened the folded note again. She traced the words with her finger. "Kenneth always returns home." She wondered what the man meant. Was it simply a thank you? Or did he want to tell her something more? She held the note close, feeling a strange kind of peace settle over her. The next morning came faster than she expected. She barely slept, but she still woke up early to prepare breakfast for her mother. Afterwards, she put on her uniform and left for the diner, carrying the same quiet hope she carried every day, that life would somehow get better. When she reached the diner, it looked the same as always, but Lena felt different. She walked inside with a small smile, thinking about the man she helped. She wondered if she would ever see him again. Maybe he lived far away, maybe he was just passing through, or maybe last night was the only time their paths would cross. She turned on the lights, arranged the menus, and began wiping the tables. Everything seemed completely normal. But life often saves the biggest surprises for the quietest mornings. She didn't know yet that her small act of kindness had already started working in the world, moving quietly, but powerfully, making its way back to her. And by the end of the day, that kindness would return to her in a way she never imagined, so shocking, so unbelievable, that she would remember it for the rest of her life. The morning light crept slowly across the sky, still heavy with leftover clouds from the night's storm. Lena walked toward the diner with quiet steps, carrying the same worry that had followed her through the night. Her uniform felt stiff from drying overnight, and her shoes were still damp from yesterday's rain. But she tried to stay positive. She reminded herself that a new day always carried new chances, even if they were small. When she pushed open the diner door, the bell above it gave a soft ring. The air inside was cool and smelled of fresh coffee. Everything looked exactly the same as always. The polished counter, the old stools, the quiet morning light shining through the windows. But Lena felt a strange heaviness in her chest. She kept thinking of mystery. Grant's angry voice from last night and the money she would lose from her paycheck. She tied her apron and started setting the tables. As she placed the silverware on each mat, she whispered to herself, "Today will be better. Today will be fine." But she wasn't sure she believed it. The first customers walked in, 2 older ladies who always ordered the same breakfast. Lena greeted them with her gentle smile, hiding her tiredness. She served them coffee, took orders, cleaned the counter, and pretended everything in her life was steady. But her mind wandered again and again to the elderly man from the storm. She wondered if he woke up somewhere warm, if he was safe, if he ate again after leaving the diner. Her thoughts were interrupted when Mr. Grant appeared from the back office. His face looked stern, and Lena's heart tightened. She quickly straightened her apron and stood behind the counter. "Lena," he called in a flat voice. "Yes, sir," she answered quietly. He walked over, crossed his arms, and looked at her without expression. "We have to talk about last night." Her stomach dropped again. She braced herself. "You can't give away food to every person who walks in," he said. "This is a business."
"You understand that?" "Yes, sir,"
she whispered. "And the cost of what you gave him. That will be taken out of your pay." Lena nodded again, trying not to let her disappointment show. She worked so hard for every dollar. Losing money meant fewer groceries, fewer medicines, fewer quiet moments without worry. Mr. Grant looked at her closely. "You need to think before doing things like that again." But Lena did not agree. She didn't argue, but inside, she believed she made the right choice. She thought a kind act is never wrong. Still, she remained silent. Arguing would only make things worse. After he left, she took a slow breath, steadying herself. She looked around the diner, trying to shake off the sadness. She reminded herself why she worked. Her mother's health, the rent, the basic needs that could not wait. She had no choice but to keep going. Hours passed, and the diner became busier. The sun finally pushed through the clouds, shining warm light inside. People came in laughing about the storm, talking about wet shoes, fallen branches, traffic delays. Lena served them all with her polite smile, even when her heart felt heavy. In quiet moments, she touched the pocket of her apron, feeling the folded note from the elderly man still inside. The simple words inside it, "Kindness always returns home," gave her a small sense of strength. She didn't know why the message felt important, but it did. It was like a promise she could not understand yet. By midday, her feet hurt from walking back and forth. She finally stopped for her short break and poured herself a small cup of tea. She sat on the stool behind the counter and let out a deep breath. She didn't cry, but there was a soft sting behind her eyes, the kind you get when life keeps testing you again and again. A coworker, Mia, walked by and said, "Rough night yesterday." Lena nodded softly but did not explain much. "Just one of those days." Mia smiled kindly. "You're too soft-hearted, Lena. But it's not a bad thing. Don't let anyone make you feel wrong for it." Her words comforted Lena more than she expected. She finished her tea, stood up again, and went back to work. As she wiped a table near the window, she felt the sun warm her face. She looked outside at the street, where people walked without umbrellas now, enjoying the fresh air after the storm. For a moment, Lena wondered if the elderly man would appear again. She imagined him walking through the door, smiling, telling her he made it somewhere safe. But hours passed and he didn't come. The day moved slowly, like a quiet breath waiting to change into something bigger. And then, when she least expected it, the unexpected began. A sleek black car stopped right in front of the diner. It looked completely out of place, shiny and expensive under the morning sun. Customers turned their heads. Mia froze mid-step. Lena stared, confused. Cars like that didn't stop at diners like this. The back door opened and a tall, well-dressed man stepped out. He wore a suit, polished shoes, and carried himself with confidence. He looked around, then walked straight toward the diner door. The bell rang softly as he entered. Everyone turned to look. His eyes searched the room, and then landed on Lena. "Excuse me," he said politely. "I'm looking for a woman named Lena." Her breath caught. She had no idea that her entire life was about to change. The diner fell into complete silence as the tall, well-dressed man stepped inside. His polished shoes made a soft sound against the old diner floor, but his presence felt loud. Too loud for a place where farmers, workers, and travelers usually ate simple meals. Lena blinked twice, wondering if she was imagining things. Why would someone like him come here? And why was he looking for her? He approached the counter with a calm, steady walk. His coat looked expensive, and a small silver pin shined on the collar. People whispered among themselves, curious. Even Mr. Grant peeked out from the back, surprised by the unexpected visitor. The man stopped right in front of Lena. She tried to smile, but confusion mixed with worry tightened her chest. She wondered if she had made some mistake, or if something had happened to the elderly man she helped the previous night. "Are you Lena?" His voice was polite and warm, but also formal, like someone trained to speak with care. "Yes," she answered softly. "I'm Lena. How can I help you?" He gave a small nod. "My name is Daniel. I'm here on behalf of someone who met you last night." Her heart skipped. She knew immediately who he meant. The old man from the storm. Daniel continued. "He asked me to find you. He wanted to make sure I spoke to you directly." Elena felt her breath shake a little. "Is he okay? Did something happen to him?" Daniel smiled gently. "He's perfectly fine. In fact, he spoke very highly of you." Lena felt a wave of relief wash through her. She didn't realize how much she'd been worrying about him until now. By this time, every person in the diner was pretending not to watch while actually listening closely. Even Mia stood frozen near the coffee machine. Daniel pulled a clean envelope from inside his coat. It looked thick and elegant, with the elderly man's name signed on the front in neat handwriting. "He asked me to give this to you," Daniel said, offering it with both hands, as if it carried something important. Lena stared at the envelope but didn't touch it yet. Her hands felt unsteady. "Why would he send me something?" she whispered. Daniel studied her face for a moment. "Because your kindness touched him more than you can imagine. He told me everything. How you helped him without asking for anything. How you treated him with respect when others ignored him." Lena lowered her eyes. It was nothing anyone would have done the same. But Daniel shook his head gently. "No, Lena. Not everyone does what you did." She hesitated before taking the envelope. It felt heavier than she expected. She didn't open it yet. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Mr. Grant finally stepped forward, trying to appear in control. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, looking nervous now. Daniel gave him a polite smile. "No problem at all. Just a message for your employee." Lena looked at her boss briefly. His expression showed confusion, curiosity, and a little fear, like he suddenly realized he had misjudged something. Daniel turned back to her. The man you helped, he has a deep appreciation for people with good hearts. And you showed him something rare last night." She swallowed hard, still unsure where this was leading. "He asked me to make sure you read the letter privately," Daniel continued. "And he also said something else." Lena's eyes widened.
What?
Daniel took a small breath, then spoke carefully. He said, "Tell her this is only the beginning." A soft gasp escaped Lena's lips. She didn't know what that meant. She didn't know what could possibly be beginning. The whole diner felt still, as if the world had paused. Daniel then reached into his coat again and pulled out a small metallic object, keys. They jingled softly. "These are also for you," he said. "They come with the letter." Lena stared at the keys in shock. Her mind raced. Keys. To what? Why? How? She didn't reach for them immediately. She was too stunned. "I understand this must be surprising," Daniel said gently. But he insisted that every detail be handled today. "He said you changed his night, and he wanted to change your life." Lena nearly dropped the letter she was holding. Her eyes filled with tears she tried so hard to hold back. I don't understand," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You will once you open the envelope." Daniel replied with a supportive smile. Mia covered her mouth in shock. Customers stared openly now. Even Mr. Grant stood frozen, unable to speak. Daniel stepped back politely. "Take your time. He told me not to rush you." Lena held the envelope close to her chest, the keys resting on top like a tiny piece of a giant puzzle. She felt overwhelmed, confused, scared, and hopeful, all at the same time. One act of kindness, one bowl of soup, one warm cup of tea, and now her life was shifting in ways she could not yet understand. She whispered softly, almost like a prayer, "What is happening to me?" Daniel gave a final warm nod. The beginning of something good, Lena. Something very good. Little did she know the envelope she now held had the power to change everything she believed about her future. Lena stood frozen behind the counter, the envelope pressed against her trembling hands. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe normally, and couldn't understand why someone she helped for only a few minutes had sent a man in a luxury car to find her. Everything felt unreal, like she had stepped into a story that didn't belong to her. Daniel watched her with calm eyes, giving her space. "Whenever you're ready," he said softly. Lena nodded, though she still didn't feel ready at all. Slowly, with careful fingers, she opened the thick envelope. Inside were two items, a folded handwritten letter and a small, official-looking document. She unfolded the letter first. The handwriting was the same gentle, shaky style as the note from last night. Her heart beat faster as she began reading. "Dear Lena, I wanted you to know the truth about who I am. I hid it because I wanted to see how people treated others when they believed no one was watching. Last night, you proved that kindness still exists. Thank you?" She paused, her breath catching. "Truth about who I am." Her eyes moved to the next paragraph. "My name is Edward Hale. I am the founder of Hale Industries. I own several companies across the country. But the world only sees the wealthy side of me. They do not see the lonely man behind it." The words hit Lena like a quiet shock. She looked up at Daniel, and he nodded slightly. "Yes," he confirmed. "That's him, Edward Hale." The name sounded familiar. Big companies, news stories, charity foundations. Lena had seen that name printed on buses, on buildings, and newspapers. Never in her wildest dreams did she imagine the man she fed soup to was the same person. Her hands shook harder as she read on. "People treat me differently when they know my name. They smile at my wealth, not at me. So sometimes I walk the streets dressed simply, to see how the world behaves without my status." A tear slipped down Lena's cheek. She wiped it quickly. "Last night, I found myself in the storm longer than planned. I was cold, tired, and in need. But no one looked at me. No one except you. You treated me like a human being. You made me feel seen." Lena pressed her lips together, trying not to cry. She remembered how lonely his eyes had looked. "For people like me, it is rare to find real kindness without conditions. You fed me without asking who I was, without asking for anything in return. And it touched my heart deeply." Her chest tightened with emotion. "I do not know your struggles, but I could sense your heart. Kindness like yours deserves to be lifted, not hidden behind hard days and small paychecks. So I want to help you in the same way you help me." Her eyes widened. Fear and hope mixed inside her. She continued reading. "Enclosed is a gift. It is not charity. It is a thank you. It is a chance for you to breathe easier, to rest your shoulders, to stand taller in this world. You deserve that." Lena's hands reached for the second paper inside the envelope, a deed, a real property deed. She stared at it in disbelief. It was a small house. Her name was written on it. Her name. Her breath broke. This can't be real." Daniel stepped closer, speaking in a calm and respectful tone. "It's very real. Mr. Hale asked me to finalize everything this morning. The house is yours. He wanted you to have stability. He said you cared for him in a moment of weakness, so he wants to give you strength in return." Lena shook her head, overwhelmed. "I don't understand why he would do something so big for me. I only gave him soup." Daniel smiled softly. "Sometimes a small act is louder than the world's noise." Mr. Grant came closer, his face pale. He had heard enough to realize this was not a prank. He opened his mouth, closing it again as if unsure what to say. The customers in the diner stared with open awe. Lena turned back to the letter. Do not think you are unworthy. You gave from your heart. Now accept a gift from one who wishes he had more people like you in his life. The final line made Lena's tears fall freely. Kindness always returns home. Yours has returned to you. She held the letter to her chest, crying softly but beautifully, feeling years of heavy worry lift piece by piece. Daniel spoke again. There's one more part. Mr. Hale wants to meet you today, not as the old man from the storm, but as himself. He wishes to thank you face to face. Lena wiped her cheeks.
He wants to meet me, yes, Daniel said gently.
He insisted. Lena felt her heart swell with emotions she could not name. Shock, gratitude, disbelief, warmth. Nothing in her life had ever prepared her for a moment like this. She whispered, almost breathlessly, I only did what anyone should do. Daniel smiled kindly. But not everyone does it, Lena. That's why it matters. And as she stood there, holding the letter that changed her life, she realized the storm last night had not brought only rain. It had brought a miracle. For a long moment, Lena stood in the middle of the diner, holding the letter close to her heart as if it were something delicate, something sacred. The room felt different now, brighter, softer, almost unreal. A few minutes earlier, she had simply been a tired waitress starting another ordinary shift. But now, her entire world had shifted into something she never imagined. Daniel watched her quietly, giving her time to breathe. Mr. Grant stepped back behind the counter, suddenly speechless, unsure how to act now that one of his employees had just been handed a gift most people only dream of. The customers whispered among themselves, amazed. Some smiled at Lena warmly, as if seeing her for the first time. Others looked embarrassed, remembering how they treated the elderly man the night before. It was a strange moment, beautiful and humbling at the same time. Lena slowly placed the letter on the counter and touched the house deed again, her fingers lightly tracing her own name printed clearly on the document. A home, a real home, something she had wished for quietly every night, but never dared to hope for. Are you all right? Daniel asked gently. She nodded, though her voice shook when she answered. Yes, I think I am. Just overwhelmed. That's understandable, he said with a kind smile. Mr. Hale's gifts tend to surprise people. Lena let out a small laugh through her tears. This is more than a surprise. It feels like the world suddenly opened a door for me. And you deserve to walk through it, Daniel replied. He reached into his coat once more and handed her a card. This has the address of the place where Mr. Hale wants to meet you today. Whenever you're ready, I'll drive you. Lena looked at the card, then at her apron, then at the diner she had worked in for years. She felt torn for a moment. Should she go right away? Should she finish her shift? Mr. Grant cleared his throat. Lena, he said, softer than she had ever heard him speak, you should go. This is important. She blinked, surprised. Are you sure? Or yes, he replied, nodding quickly. Take the day off. And congratulations. The word sounded strange coming from him, but sincere. Lena smiled appreciatively before turning back to Daniel. Okay, she whispered. I'm ready. A meeting the man who changed everything. The drive to Mr. Hale's home felt unreal. Daniel drove the luxury car smoothly through the city, and Lena stared out of the window, trying to calm the storm of emotions inside her. She felt small and big at the same time. Small because she came from such simple beginnings, and big because kindness had taken her farther than she ever dreamed possible. The car turned into a long, quiet driveway lined with tall trees. At the end stood a beautiful, elegant house, not too large, not too small, but warm-looking, like a place filled with stories and memories. This is his private residence, Daniel said. Lena stepped out slowly, her hands still trembling. The front door opened, and the same elderly man she had helped walked out. No shabby clothes, no dripping coat, no shivering hands. Today he stood straight, dressed in a clean sweater and pressed trousers. His hair was neatly combed, and his eyes looked brighter than the night she first saw him. But his smile was exactly the same. Lena, he said with gentle warmth. She felt tears rise instantly. She walked toward him carefully, unsure if she should hug him or shake his hand. He solved the problem for her by reaching out and taking her hand softly between both of his. You came? He said. Of course, Lena whispered. Are you feeling better? He chuckled softly. Much better, thanks to you. They sat together on a wooden bench in his garden. Birds sang softly from the trees, and sunlight fell gently across the grass. It felt like a peaceful world far away from the noisy diner. Edward looked at her kindly. I want to thank you. Not for the soup, not for the tea, but for something bigger. She tilted her head. What is that? For treating me with dignity, he said. Most people looked away last night. You didn't. You saw me as a person, not a burden. Alina swallowed hard. Everyone deserves kindness. Yes, Edward said, but not everyone receives it. You reminded me that goodness still exists. Lena lowered her eyes, humbled. He continued, I spent many years helping others through my companies and charities, but rarely do I find someone who gives from the heart with nothing to gain. That is why I wanted to help you in return. But a house, it's too much, she whispered. Edward shook his head gently. For someone who saved me from a cold storm. For someone who warmed my heart when I felt invisible. No, it's not too much. It's the right thing. A tear slipped down Lena's cheeks again. She didn't try to hide them. I don't know how to thank you, she said softly. Live a better life, Edward replied. Take care of your mother, and someday when you see someone in need, help them. Just as you helped me. She nodded slowly. I promise. Edward smiled satisfied. A new beginning later, Daniel drove her home. The world looked brighter, as if everything had changed colors. When she walked into her small apartment, she hugged her mother with more love than ever. Her mother touched her cheeks gently. Why are you crying, child? Lena laughed through her tears, because something beautiful happened. Something I never expected. That night, as she sat on her bed with the house deed beside her, she thought about how one simple act, the bowl of soup, the warm tea, the soft smile, had changed 2 lives. Her life was no longer defined by struggle. Her kindness had returned home just as Edward said it would. And from that day on, whenever life felt heavy, Lena remembered one thing: sometimes the smallest kindness becomes the biggest miracle.